Our top story tonight is about two countries, Iran and the United States. There is no love lost between the two. They have been enemies for a long time now. But in the recent days, the tensions have exploded. From the nuclear deal to an alleged killing plot, Tehran and Washington are at loggerheads. So let's start off with the first issue, the Iran nuclear deal. In 2015, Iran and 6 other world powers emerged out of months of negotiation. The result was a historic nuclear deal with Iran, formerly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Iran agreed to limit its nuclear activities, and in return, its crippling economic sanctions were lifted. All was well until 2018. Then US President Donald Trump felt that the deal did not go far enough. So he decided to walk away from it. And since then, tensions have escalated between the two countries. The Iran nuclear deal has seen a lot, but countries are still scrambling to save it. And this time, the deal even looks within reach. Earlier this week, the European Union presented their final text, one that they said was non-negotiable. Iran has since been studying the text. Today, it said, the European Union proposal could be acceptable. This if Tehran gets assurances on all of its key demands. Now, this is a positive sign for everyone involved in the nuclear deal, especially for the United States and the European Union. Both sides are also desperate to reach a deal, and if a deal is reached soon, 1 million barrels of oil per day could enter the market, something that could help relieve the global energy crisis. Currently, Iran cannot sell its oil on the global market, but if a deal is reached, it will allow Tehran to do so. So any deal will be a major victory for Europe, especially as it faces a potential emergency this winter. And this brings us to issue number 2, an alleged assassination plot. An Iranian has been charged in the United States. What's his crime? A plot to kill former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton. Shahram Poursafi is a member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. According to Washington, Poursafi had offered to pay an individual $300,000 to kill Bolton. This was likely in retaliation to Qasem Soleimani's assassination in 2020. Poursafi also mentioned the possibility of a second target. He said this target could earn the assassin at least $1 million. Now, US officials have not said who the second target was, but according to reports, it was former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. The Justice Department says Poursafi remains at large. The IRGC member is believed to be in Iran. Both Bolton and Pompeo have been fierce critics of Tehran, so it's not surprising that they were on the hit list. But Tehran has denied all assassination claims as fiction. It also warned the US against any action that targets Iranian citizens. But a nuclear deal and an assassination plot are not all. Tensions between the two sides have even reached space. Russia launched an Iranian satellite into orbit from southern Kazakhstan. The Kayam is a Russian-built Canopus 5 Earth observation satellite, what many are calling a spy satellite. Iran says it wants to use the satellite for non-military purposes, but the West thinks it could be used by Moscow to assist its intelligence operations in Ukraine.
What can I say?
The claims, however, have been rejected by the Iranian Space Agency. It says it has exclusive control over the satellite from day one. And this is not the first time Iran has been accused of aiding Russia in the Ukraine war. Earlier, Washington had claimed that Tehran wanted to sell hundreds of armed drones to Russia. Reports suggest a Russian delegation visited an airbase in central Iran, not once but twice. And now new reports suggesting that Russian officials have started training on drones in Iran. They call this a part of the agreement on the transfer of drones between the two countries. Moscow sees Tehran as a key partner and potential source of arms. Both countries are diplomatically isolated, they are heavily sanctioned by the West, and they share a common adversary in Washington. However, Iran denies any such claims of selling drones to Russia. It says it will not militarily assist in a conflict that it wants to end. And with me on the broadcast this minute is Jamil N. Jaffer. He is the founder and executive director of the National Security Institute. With me from Arlington. Thanks very much, Jamil, for being here. Now, according to reports, Iran may be looking to accept this EU proposal on the Iran nuclear deal. Where do you see these negotiations headed, with the EU saying this is a non-negotiable piece of text? And what would the implications of the Iran nuclear deal being revived be at a time when energy prices have been skyrocketing?
Well, look, obviously, the Iran nuclear deal has been a challenge for the West. After we negotiated it, it had significant challenges, significant problems. Did not go as far as it needed to go to protect the interests of the United States and our European allies. Ultimately, the former president of the United States left the agreement, and the Biden administration has been seeking to get back into the agreement in a way that makes sense for the United States and our allies. The European Union has now presented what they call a final deal to Tehran, as you point out. But the Iranians view the situation as one where they have the United States and Europe over a barrel, and they can continue to negotiate and get more concessions out. As it is, many of the deadlines of the deal, some have passed. The UN arms embargo has already been lifted on Iran, and more to come in the near future. And so if a real deal, a significant deal is to be achieved, it's got to address not just the nuclear issue, but also Iran's regional ambitions, as we've been talking about here already, and needs to be extended in a number of deadlines. So even the deal the Europeans have put on the table is not ideal, but the Iranians think they're going to be able to negotiate even better than that. And I think either way, the U.S. is in a very challenged position trying to accept any one of those deals.
All right, Jamil, also, how do you assess Washington's claims of Iran aiding Russia in the Ukraine war?
Yeah, I think these are real challenges, right? We know that a Russian delegation, that intelligence has been declassified, saying that a Russian delegation in the June-July timeframe, as you pointed out, went to Iran twice to talk about drones. The Iranians were interested in selling two drones, the Shahed 191, medium range, medium endurance aircraft, or medium altitude, long range aircraft, and the Shahed 129. Both can be armed. We now know they've begun providing those and have begun training on those for the Russians. And so those are likely to get into the fight in Ukraine here in the near future with weapons that can kill Ukrainian civilians, as the Russians have been targeting civilian populations during the entirety of this war. And then you have this conversation, as you pointed out, about the satellite, the Kayam satellite that the Iranians are claiming is going to be used for agricultural purposes, has very capable optics on it to do Earth observation. Highly likely that the Russians, being willing to do the launch out of Kazakhstan, will expect something in return for that, which may very well be imagery of the Ukraine conflict to help them deploy those drones and those capabilities. So even if the Iranians, as they say, keep that capability themselves, they may very well use that imagery to inform the drone strikes that the Russians are now going to be utilizing from Iran.
Jamil, appreciate very much you're joining us on the broadcast here. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.